Long ago, under the shimmering gaze of the moon that never blinked, something strange and terrible happened in a far-off village. People still whisper the tale in hushed voices, especially when the wind howls through the trees. The tale begins. Not with a wedding, but with a warning. Beware the stranger who smiles too wide, for his heart may not beat like yours. Now listen well. There was a village named Takalani, nestled between two sacred hills and cradled by the river Muntu. It was a place where drums never stopped, and the smell of roasted yam and pepper stew floated through the air like music. The village was known across the region for two things: its skillful weavers who could spin silk from the threads of moonlight, and its daughters, radiant like the morning sun. But even among them, one girl stood out like a flame in the dark. Her name was Niaja, and she was more than just beautiful. Her skin shimmered like polished ebony, her eyes held the calm of deep water, and her laughter could turn quarrels into songs. Her long braided hair danced with the wind, and her voice could hush crying children in a heartbeat. Yet Niaja was known not only for her beauty, but for her spirit, wild, proud, and stubborn as a lioness. She was a potter, her hands always dusted with red clay, shaping bowls and figures that the elders claimed were blessed by the gods. She lived with her mother Naya and father Baraka, who loved her deeply but worried for her soul. For Niaja had a heart that did not bend. She followed her instincts like a river follows its course, even when it rushed toward a waterfall. "Niaja, child," her mother would say, wringing her hands as she watched her daughter fire her pots under the midday sun. "There is wisdom in listening. Your heart is loud, but it cannot see." Niaja would only smile, never lifting her gaze from her spinning wheel. "Mama, my heart has eyes sharper than any elder." One market day, as the sun melted gold across the rooftops and drums beat softly, in the background, Niaja walked through the village square with her best friend Amale, a girl with laughter like raindrops and hair always wrapped in bright blue scarves. They had just traded clay pots for palm oil and were sharing roasted groundnuts. When Niaja froze mid-bite, across the crowd, standing like a shadow in sunlight, was a man she had never seen. He was tall, wrapped in flowing white robes that shimmered like silk. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, gray and endless, and his skin was smooth, like river stones. He stood still, watching the crowd as though he was measuring it. Something about him felt still, too still. Niaja nudged Amale. "Who is that? The one by the spice stall?" Amale followed her gaze and gave a soft gasp. "Ah, that is Kalema. He arrived 2 moons ago. They say he came from across the Mamba Mountains. Quiet man, never buys much, but he paid for an entire cassava harvest with gold. He lives alone at the edge of the forest near the Shadow Grove." Niaja couldn't take her eyes off him. Her heartbeat thumped in her ears. It wasn't just his beauty, it was something beneath. At the surface, something ancient and sorrowful. When their eyes finally met, it was like a spark leapt between them, lighting a fire that neither of them could put out. Over the following weeks, they kept meeting, always by chance, always brief. Kalema would gift her strange but beautiful trinkets, a carved lion from bone, a necklace made from stones that glowed faintly in the dark. He spoke in a soft, lyrical voice and told tales of deserts that hummed at night and cities made of salt. When he laughed, it was quiet and deep, like drums played underwater. Niaja had never met a man like him. He listened when she spoke. He saw her, not just her beauty, but her fire. Their love grew quickly, like wildfire in dry grass. By the time Kalema asked her to marry him, Niaja didn't hesitate. But her parents were afraid. "We know nothing about this man," her father Baraka said, his voice heavy like the sky before rain. "No family, no history, no roots in this village." "His wealth may shine bright," her mother Naya added, "but even gold can come from cursed ground. There is something quiet about him, too quiet." But Niaja would not hear of it. "My spirit knows him," she replied firmly. "The gods have sent him." A wedding was arranged. It was grand, unlike anything the village had seen. The meat flowed like water, the wine never stopped pouring, and musicians played until their fingers bled. But even in the joy, people noticed strange things. No family came from Kalema's side. no friends, no uncles or aunts, not even a neighbor. When asked, Niaja said he was an orphan, a survivor of war in distant lands. The villagers nodded but whispered. The elders frowned. After the celebrations, Kalema led his new bride through the moonlit path toward his home, a grand mansion hidden in the forest's shadows at the edge of the infamous Shadow Grove. The trees there grew unnaturally tall. No birds sang. The wind itself seemed to hesitate. The mansion was oddly silent. Dust coated its halls. Portraits of grim-looking couples lined the walls, each face pale and eerily similar to Kalema's. Some of them were smiling, but their eyes were lifeless. Still, the bedroom was warm. Candles flickered red. Flower petals danced on the floor. Kalema carried Niaja like she was made of glass, laid her on the bed, and kissed her forehead. For the first time, she felt his hands tremble. That night, they became one. As the candlelight faded, Kalema turned to her. "Niaja," he whispered, his voice shaking. "There is something I must tell you." She blinked, dazed with joy. "Tell me what, my love?" But before he could speak, a howling wind smashed through the room. The candles blew out. The door slammed open, and two massive, faceless men stepped inside. Their bodies were wrapped in shadow, and their eyes glowed like dying stars. Without speaking, they reached for Kalema. He fought. Oh, he fought like a lion cornered. But their strength was not of this world. They grabbed him and began dragging him toward the door. "I'm sorry, Niaja," he cried, voice breaking. "I tried. I thought I could stay, sir, but they found me." "Kalema," she screamed, stumbling from the bed, hair flying, voice hoarse. "What is happening? Who are they?" But it was too late. He was gone, dragged into the night by creatures not born of man. Niaja stood there in her wedding cloth, trembling. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Her heart raced, her breath shallow. She ran, out the mansion, into the woods, screaming his name. "Kalema! Kalema!" The trees swallowed her voice. The wind offered no answers. But her story was just beginning. She ran into the forest barefoot, her wedding cloth torn by branches that clawed at her like unseen hands. The Shadow Grove was thicker than she remembered, darker too, as if the night had buried itself in the roots. "Kalema," she cried again. "Kalema." Only silence answered. And then, a trail. It was faint, but the soil bore marks. A deep groove, as though something or someone had been dragged through it. Without thinking, Niaja followed, her chest tight, eyes darting left and right. The deeper she went, the more the world changed. The air grew heavy, like smoke without fire. The trees leaned inward. No birds, no insects, just the sound of her own breath and the pounding of her heart. Time slipped. She didn't know how long she walked. Her voice grew hoarse. Her feet bled. Then, just as she thought the forest would consume her, she saw it, a thin wisp of white smoke curling into the sky. She followed it like a prayer. At the end of the trail stood a hut, small, strange, crooked like it had grown from the earth itself. Outside it, a fire crackled under a blackened pot. The smell was wrong. Sweet, metallic, ancient. Niaja stepped closer. "Hello?" she called out, voice trembling. No answer. She took another step. "Please, I'm looking for my husband, Kalema." "You will not find him in my home," said a voice behind her. Niaja spun around. An old woman stood there, bent like a question mark, with skin like wrinkled bark and hair black and glossy like river reeds. She held a gnarled staff, and her eyes were clouded with smoke. Not blindness, but something deeper. Her presence was wrong. A soul too old for the body. Niaja stepped back. Who are you?" The old woman ignored the question. She hobbled toward the fire, removed the lid of the pot, and stirred it with her stick. The smell hit Niaja fully then, copper and marrow and cooked sorrow. She gasped. Inside the pot floated something pale and unmistakable, tiny arms, tiny legs, a child's. The woman dipped a hand into the bubbling blood, brought it to her mouth and licked it slowly. Her lips curved into a smile. Niaja stumbled back, bile rising in her throat. "What? What are you?" she whispered. The old woman looked up. "One who remembers, one who waits, one who feeds." Niaja trembled, ready to run, but the woman's next words froze her in place. "Your husband is not of this world." "What?" "Kalema," she said softly, "is no longer flesh. He walks between death and memory, a spirit caught in sorrow." Niaja shook her head violently. "No, no, that can't be. I touched him, I kissed him, Her voice broke. "We were together. He cried at our wedding." "He loved you," the woman said. "That much is true. But his soul is bound by pain, murdered by blood, betrayed by kin. His spirit seeks peace, but the forest will not let him go." Niaja's knees buckled. She sank to the ground. "Murdered? By who?" The woman stared into the fire. "By his brother, a jealous man, greedy for wealth. He spilled Kalema's blood in this cursed forest and buried him beneath roots twisted with rage. Kalema's soul rose but could not move on. Then how was he in the village? With me?" The woman turned. Her eyes burned now, white and endless. "Sometimes the dead wear the faces of the living. They walk, they love, they laugh. But it is borrowed time. The forest always calls them back," Niaja whispered. "Why did he come to me?" "Because he remembered love. And you were the thread that kept him whole. But that thread, his fraying." Tears spilled down Niaja's cheeks. She remembered his trembling hands, his final words, the shadows that took him. "Can I save him?" she asked. "Can I bring him peace?" The woman studied her for a long time. Then, without a word, she entered the hut. A moment later, she returned with 2 items, a small glowing vial filled with silver liquid and a compass carved from bone. She handed them to Niaja. "This will take you to the spirit world," she said, nodding at the vial. "Drink it under moonlight. The compass will guide your desire. But listen well. You must find Kalema before sunrise. If the sun rises and you are still in that world, you will never return. Your soul will be lost among the nameless." Niaja stared at the vial. "And if I find him, then give him your voice. Speak his name. Remind him of who he was. That may be enough, or it may not." The forest groaned around them. Niaja wiped her tears. "I'll go." The old woman nodded slowly. "Then be quick, the moon is rising." She turned and disappeared into the darkness. The words of the strange old woman haunted Niaja's heart deeply. Fear clawed at her, but her love for Kalema burned brighter than any dread. With trembling hands, she uncorked the glowing bottle and drank the mysterious liquid without hesitation. Almost instantly, the world around her began to warp and shift. The trees twisted into strange, gnarled shapes, their branches writhing like serpents. The air grew thick and heavy, pressing against her lungs. The old woman's form flickered and faded like a dying ember. And then Niaja found herself standing in an entirely different realm. Before her moved many spirits, their faces twisted, disfigured, some terrifying. Some had no heads, others bore knives plunged deep into their chests. Niaja's heart hammered fiercely, and a cold wave of fear washed over her. But she steadied herself. This was the spirit world, a realm where lost souls and ghosts wandered aimlessly. Clutching the compass the old woman had given her, Niaja set out, her steps guided by its unerring pull. She walked for what felt like hours until she reached the bank of a great river, thick and red as blood. On the shore sat a small boat, and beside it stood a peculiar man, stout and pot-bellied, his eyes sharp and calculating. "To cross," the ferryman said, "you must pay a toll. What will you trade?" Niaja looked around helplessly. She had no gold, no coin. Then the man's gaze fell on the diamond ring glittering on her finger, the last gift from Kalema. "That will do," he grinned, reaching out to take it. Though sorrow gripped her, Niaja surrendered the precious ring. Without it, she felt stripped of a part of Kalema, but she knew there was no other choice. "Are you certain you want to cross? Many who do never return." "The path is perilous," the ferryman warned. "I will cross," Niaja said firmly. He nodded and pushed the boat into the swirling river. Midway across, pale hands erupted from the blood-red waters, clawing and grasping at the boat's sides, desperate to drag it under. Niaja's breath caught in her throat, but the ferryman shouted urgently, "Close your eyes, harden your heart. Fear betrays you here. Only courage will save you." Niaja squeezed her eyes shut, filling her mind with thoughts of Kalema, summoning every ounce of strength. Slowly, the grasping hands receded beneath the surface. The boat glided safely to the other shore, where a dense forest waited, a tangled maze of twisted trees that whispered in eerie voices. "This is the forest of echoes," the ferryman said gravely. "The trees speak the fears, doubts, and regrets of all who enter. Be wary. Listen not to their lies. I wish you luck." With that, he vanished on the river's edge, leaving Niaja alone. She stepped cautiously into the forest. At first the whispers were faint, but soon they grew louder, voices she knew, speaking words meant to break her spirit. "Niaja, you will fail. He's lost forever. You are not strong enough. This journey will be your end." Her heart trembled, fear clawing at her again. But then she remembered the ferryman's warning. Gathering her courage, she began to sing aloud, a song Kalema had once sung to her, a melody filled with hope and love. The voices faded beneath her song. With determination burning in her chest, Niaja pushed forward, her eyes fixed on the compass, moving ever deeper into the haunted forest. Niaja followed the compass until she arrived at a vast estate filled with many houses. The place was eerily quiet and deserted, yet the houses were beautiful and well kept. As she stepped further inside, every door suddenly swung open at once. Peering inside, Niaja saw scenes from different times of her life playing out. In one house she witnessed her wedding with Kalema. How radiant and happy she had looked. Then, to her astonishment, she saw Kalema standing outside that house, reaching his hand toward her. "Hold my hand and come inside," he called softly. In another house she saw her childhood, a time of joy and innocence. Her best friend Esther stood there stretching out her hand, beckoning Niaja to return to those simpler days. But Niaja knew better than to fall for these tricks. She pressed her hands firmly against her ears and hurried through the estate without looking into any of the houses. At the estate's edge, the compass led her to the mouth of a dark, foreboding cave. Fear gnawed at her, but she heard Kalema's voice echoing from within, crying out in pain and agony. Without hesitation, Niaja stepped inside. She spotted a local lamp hanging on the wall, grabbed it, and lit her way as she ventured deeper. After a long walk, she reached the cave's wide, bright center. There, chained to a massive altar-like rock, was Kalema. "Ia, Kalema," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It's me." Kalema looked weak but smiled faintly. "Yes, my love." As Niaja rushed to free him, a terrifying witch with glowing red eyes and long white hair appeared before her. "You senseless child," the witch sneered. "Your parents warned you. What power do you have that makes you special?" Though terrified, Niaja recalled the riddle the old woman had given her. Summoning her courage, she stepped forward and said firmly, "Love is powerful, but true love is unstoppable. The love I have for him is what makes me exceptional." The witch sniffed the air, searching for fear, but Niaja's brave heart showed none. Suddenly the witch smiled. "Truly, true love conquers all. If you love him enough to risk your life in the spirit world, then who am I to stop you?" With that, the witch vanished. Niaja hurried to Kalema and unchained him. As the first rays of sunlight began to pierce the cave, Kalema fell to the ground and apologized for hiding the truth from her. Placing his hand on her chest, he said, "Thank you for saving me. I will always be with you. Please go to my village, Kirana, east of Melora. The compass will guide you. Find my brother, tell him the truth, and avenge my death." As the sun rose higher, the cave around them transformed back into the physical world. Kalema's spirit faded, and Niaja fell into a deep sleep. When she awoke hours later, the sun was high above, and she was back in the forest. The compass now pointed in a new direction. With renewed determination, Niaja set off toward Kirana. For days she walked through the forest, sustaining herself on fruits she found along the way. After 7 days, she arrived at a small ancient village nestled among the hills, Kalima's village. When Niaja entered the village, she noticed an elderly woman struggling to carry a heavy bundle of firewood on her head. Feeling compassion, Niaja greeted her warmly and offered to help with the burden. Gratefully, the old woman handed over the firewood, and together they walked to her humble home. Once inside, Niaja placed the firewood carefully in a corner of the yard. The woman thanked her and blessed her journey. Just as Niaja was about to leave, the old woman stopped her with a wistful sigh. "If only my son were alive today," she said softly. "I'm sure you would have made a wonderful wife for him." Niaja froze, surprised by the comment. "Your son's name is Kalema?" she asked hesitantly. The old woman nodded. "Yes, he was handsome and successful, but he vanished many years ago. No one has heard from him since." The word stirred memories from the strange woman Niaja had met in the forest, who had warned her that Kalema's own brother was responsible for his disappearance, driven by greed and jealousy. "Does your son have a brother?" Niaja inquired. "His name is Ravi," the woman replied bitterly. "After Kalema went missing, Ravi took control of the family's wealth and cast everyone else out. If Kalema were still alive, I wouldn't be living in this tiny home." The old woman's words weighed heavily on Niaja's heart. She shared everything: her wedding to Kalema, his mysterious disappearance that night, her encounter with the strange woman, her journey to the spirit world, and the rescue of Kalema's soul. Most importantly, she revealed that Ravi was the one who had caused Kalema's death. At first, the old woman doubted her, but as Niaja described Kalema's kindness, his face and his spirit, tears streamed down the woman's cheeks. Enraged by the truth, the old woman led Niaja to the village elders and recounted everything. The elders, filled with fury, summoned Ravi to the king's palace and demanded he swear his innocence regarding Kalema's disappearance. Ravi was shocked that Niaja knew so much, details only he could know. Realizing that denying the truth would mean death, he fell to his knees and confessed. He admitted to poisoning Kalema out of envy because Kalema's success had overshadowed his own struggles. After Kalema's death, he had disposed of the body deep in the forbidden forest. The king, enraged by Ravi's wickedness, stripped him of all power and wealth. Ravi was punished harshly, his legs were broken, and he was abandoned in the very forest where he had hidden Kalema's body. The village celebrated Niaja's courage and bravery. She was provided with food, water, and a horse for her journey home. After 10 days, Niaja finally returned to her village, exhausted but alive. Her family and friends, who had searched for her since her wedding night, rejoiced at her safe return. Mysteriously, Kalema's mansion in the forest had vanished, leaving no trace. 2 months later, Niaja discovered she was pregnant with Kalema's child. It puzzled her. How could a spirit father a child? When she gave birth, her baby boy bore a striking resemblance to Kalema. Niaja refused to marry another man. She devoted her life to raising her son and honoring the memory of the man she loved so deeply. Though her heart ached, she found peace in her child, and in knowing that Kalema's spirit was finally at rest. True love endures beyond death. Justice may be delayed, but it will always prevail. Greed and betrayal only bring destruction, while courage and determination can overcome any obstacle. True love leaves a legacy that transcends time itself. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an adventure.